The UFC returns to China this upcoming weekend, and Shanghai to be exact, and we have a very fun 3-fight stretch on the main card with a lot of implications and a lot of things at stake for the heavyweight, featherweight, and light heavyweight divisions respectively. And that main event will feature China's own Zhang Mingyang looking to remain undefeated in the UFC, but in order to do so, he will have to take out the veteran Johnny Walker. The 5-round co-main event, that's right, not 3, but 5, will feature Brian Ortega, former title challenger, versus Aljamain Sterling, former bantamweight champion turned featherweight title challenging hopeful. And the featured bout is a big one in the heavyweight division, as the former interim title challenger Sergei Pavlovich will look to stop the momentum of the surging Waldo Cortes-Acosta, who may just be one victory away from title contention, and it may just come as soon as this Saturday. The 33-year-old 13th ranked light heavyweight in the world, Johnny Walker, has been in front of our eyes since 2018 when he fought on Dana White Contender Series and catapulted onto the scene from there, starting his UFC run 3-0 with 3 consecutive knockouts, and at that point in time, many people were saying this could be the man to stop Jon Jones. But he would quickly be humbled, and that narrative surrounding his career would be shoved into the garbage because he would go on to lose 4 of his next 5 bouts. Those fights all happening between November of 2019 and February of 2022. Now, to be fair, they were all against very high-level competition. Corey Anderson, a perennial ranked light heavyweight during his time in the promotion, Nikita Krylov, a still ranked top 15 fighter, a victory over Ryan Spann, and then the other 2 losses to former title challenger Thiago Santos and former champion Jamal Hill during his run to become the champ. But then in September of 2022, it seemed as though Johnny Walker had maybe turned the corner in his career and was having a bit of a resurgence, because that would be the first of 3 consecutive wins. It started against Jan Cutelaba, then he would finish Paul Craig, and then get a decision over former title challenger Anthony Smith. But since then, the momentum has went to the wayside once again, as Johnny Walker will go into this one on a 3-fight winless streak. The first was a no contest against now champion Magomed Ankalaev. Then they would run it back in the first fight night of 2024. This time Ankalaev would put a stamp on it by knocking out Johnny Walker in the second round. And then Johnny would fight in June of 2024 in Saudi Arabia and be finished by Volkan Oezdemir via knockout, and has not fought since. So now back from a 14-month hiatus, looking to rebound before it's too late in his career. Walker has finished 19 of his 21 victories with 16 knockouts and 3 submissions, and there have been plenty of times throughout his UFC tenure where he was looked like an elite level light heavyweight. And it's not just when he's having these crazy flashy finishes, but he has also put together 15-minute performances where he has fought very cool, calm, and collected as well. Sometimes you really just don't know what version of Johnny Walker is going to show up, and I think that is what has led to so much inconsistency during his 7-year career so far. But inconsistency has been the exact opposite word to describe Zhang Mingyang's 3-fight run in the UFC, because he is 3-0 in the promotion, with all 3 victories coming by way of first-round knockout. And that includes in his most recent fight a win and first-round knockout over Anthony Lionheart Smith himself in his retirement fight. Zhang Mingyang is maybe the biggest prospect that this light heavyweight division has seen in years at this point, because at just 27 years of age, he has a 100% finish rate with an overall record of 19 wins and 6 losses, with 13 knockouts and 6 submissions. And the last time that he has lost a fight, you gotta scroll all the way back to October of 2019, meaning that he will enter his first UFC main event on a 12-fight win streak, and all of those 19 victories and stoppages that he has, every single one of them has come in the very first round. And that could be a scary sign for Johnny Walker, because 3 of his 5 losses in the UFC have come by, you guessed it, first round finish. And Zhang Mingyang is going to have the Chinese fans behind him and the crowd going bananas when he makes the walk to the cage. And if he can get a win and even another finish over someone as perennially ranked as Johnny Walker, he will launch himself right into relevancy and title discussions, in my opinion, for this light heavyweight division that is one of the weaker weight classes in all of the UFC. I truly think that with a win here over Walker, he will get a very big opportunity upon his next bout that would likely come in 2026. And if he can win that one, then he can legitimately be a title contender waiting to challenge either Magomed Ankalaev or Alex Pereira next year. But of course, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, because he is having a very big step up in competition. I even say that coming off of the Anthony Smith win, because we know that Anthony was on his way out already. And Johnny Walker, being the finisher that he is, could definitely present some problems to Zhang Mingyang, who himself has been finished in 5 of his 6 losses with 3 knockouts and 2 submissions. But I'm telling you, there's something about the mountain tiger that is Zhang Mingyang. He just looks so composed in these fights, but when he lands a shot and smells blood in the water, he will capitalize and get the finish. It's just in his DNA. This could be Johnny Walker's last chance at holding his spot in the rankings of the light heavyweight division, and I wouldn't be surprised one bit that if he lacks success here in this one and loses, he will make his way up to the heavyweight division because he has already discussed that for many years. This fight is all but certain to not go the full 25 minutes, and it's damn near certain to potentially not even leave the first round. This is going to be very violent no matter which man comes out as the victor, but there is a lot on the line for the longtime veteran in Walker and the new surging prospect in Zhang Mingyang. Only one man can leave China with his hand held high. So be sure to let me know down in the comments below your predictions and your bets for this main event for UFC Shanghai and who you see coming out as the winner Saturday morning. So of course we know that the main event had stakes on the line and storylines surrounding it, but these next two fights are even more so in my opinion because Brian Ortega is looking to hold his spot in featherweight title contention, whereas his opponent Aljamain is looking to enter title contention for the first time in the 145-pound division. This will be Brian Ortega's 7th fight over the last nearly 7 years, and 4 of those 6 leading into this co-main event against Aljamain have been losses. Now, of course, to be fair, 2 of them were championship bouts, the loss in 2018 to Max Holloway and the loss in 2021 to Alexander Volkanovski in what was one of the craziest fights of the year. And the other losses were to Yair Rodriguez, a former interim champion, and in that one it was a shoulder injury for T-City, and his most recent outing was at Noche UFC last September where he would lose a decision to Diego Lopez, who would then go on to challenge Alexander Volkanovski for the vacant title this April. And the 2 wins sandwiched in between for those 6 fights were to the Korean Zombie in October of 2020 over the course of a 25-minute decision, and the other would come in February of 2024 where Ortega would right the wrongs and get revenge against Yair Rodriguez by making a big-time comeback and stopping Yair via third-round submission. It's crazy that over the last 7 years, Brian Ortega had no fights at all in 2019 and 2023, and just 1 fight each in 2020, 2021, and 2022. But somehow he still finds himself holding on to that number 5 ranking in the featherweight division, and that's even with him discussing potential moves to the lightweight division. And I definitely foresee him making that move upon his next bout, especially if it's a loss here to Aljamain Sterling. That would definitely send him way down the totem pole in this stacked 145-pound weight class. And the number 7 ranked Aljamain Sterling is 1-1 since coming up to 145 pounds last April, where he would make his debut and get a win over Calvin Kattar. Then he would lose his second fight in the division in a very fun, very competitive bout against the still undefeated Movsar Evloev. And the fight that would ultimately lead to Aljo making his jump up to 145 pounds was when he would lose his championship to Sean O'Malley at UFC 292 in August of 2023. However, before that championship loss to Sean O'Malley, Aljamain Sterling was on a 9-fight win streak and was in the discussions for being one of, if not the best bantamweights of all time, racking up wins over Pedro Munoz, Corey Sandhagen, Petr Yan, TJ Dillashaw, and Henry Cejudo. And while yes, Aljamain is 36 years of age now, he still is very, very fresh in this featherweight division, and he still looks like he can hang with the best in the world, and that could potentially this Saturday include Brian Ortega, who yes is a couple years younger, but seems to just not have the momentum behind him that Aljo does, and that's even with Aljo coming in off of a loss. And from an X's and O's perspective, this fight could get very intriguing because Aljo would go up against the undefeated Movsar Evloev, as I previously mentioned, and both of them are known for their grappling, and they delivered an absolute masterclass down on the mat with so many sequences, submission threats, and everything in between. And that could very well be what happens in this fight with Ortega. However, we have seen Brian Ortega have his fair share of stand-up wars, and I would have to say that if this fight does stay standing, I give him the edge in the striking realm. But is Aljamain going to look to utilize on his impressive wrestling and grappling skills against someone as dangerous off of their back and with their jiu-jitsu as T-City is? I am very much looking forward to this co-main event, and it absolutely deserves to have 5 rounds surrounding it because there are big-time title implications, and there are big implications for the stories and futures of both of their careers, because where do they go if each of them lose? Aljo would now fall to 1-2 since joining 145 pounds, and Brian Ortega would lose 5 of his last 7 if Aljo gets the upper hand on him. Now, of course, yes, I said that Ortega could just move up to lightweight and have a new career there, but even still, would you really favor him against some of those elite level guys at 155? I think not. So I definitely want to get your thoughts on this co-main event down below, and who you think will come out on top. Will it be Ortega? Will Will it be Sterling? And no matter which way you choose, how do you see it happening? Because that's where I believe it gets very interesting. And lastly, in the heavyweight division, we will see the number 3 ranked Sergei Pavlovich taking on the number 6 ranked Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Sergei had a much needed bounce back win in February of this year where he would earn a decision over Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and I say it was much needed because he was on a 2-fight skid heading into that one with a decision loss to Alexander Volkov where he would virtually have 0 offense, and before that, he would lose in the interim title fight against Tom Aspinall in November of 2023 where he was brutally knocked out in 1 minute and 9 seconds. And it's also worth noting that Sergei Pavlovich has not been the same man that we were used to during his 6-fight first-round knockout win streak that he found himself on heading into that fight against Aspinall, because he did not really get anything going against Volkov, as I previously said, and even in the victory against Jairzinho, it was a very low-output fight. But it's clear that if Pavlovich can turn back the clock and get back to where he used to be, he is one of the most scary, terrifying individuals on the entire UFC roster. I mean, look at the wins that he had. First round knockout, Curtis Blades. First round knockout, Tai Tuivasa. First round knockout, Derek Lewis. The list goes on and on. He was an absolute killer during that 6-fight stretch, and if he can get back to that point, the top 5 of the light heavyweight division has their hands full. But the Salsa boy, Waldo Cortes-Acosta, has had everyone's number over the last couple of years because he enters this fight on a 5-fight win streak and has probably been, even though I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, the most active heavyweight on the roster dating back to his debut in 2022. Because after earning a contract on Dana White Contender Series in August of 2022 with a first-round knockout, he would make his debut just 2 months later in October of that year. And come this Saturday against Pavlovich, it will already be his 9th UFC fight in less than 3 years. And the only loss for him so far was a close decision to Marcos Rogerio de Lima in April of 2023 before his win streak started. And this 5-fight stretch that he finds himself on has victories over Andrei Arlovski, Ryan Spann, and most recently the polar bear Sergei Spivak, and that was just in June. This will already be the 3rd fight of the year for Waldo because he also got that Spann victory in March, and that was a 2nd-round TKO where he brutalized Superman in his heavyweight debut. Waldo may not be the scariest or most flashy heavyweight on the roster, but he finds a way to get victories, and at 33 years old, he is right in his fighting prime, especially when you consider he's in the heavyweight division. He has a 14-1 record overall, and he's a supremely athletic talent considering he was a former minor league pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds. But who's to say that Sergei Pavlovich can't play big-time spoiler and give Waldo his toughest test to date, maybe even become the first man to finish Waldo, and that would definitely place Pavlovich right back in the title discussions of this heavyweight division. So let me know down in the comments below if you think Pavlovich will be able to turn back the clock and get that scary power back out into the world, or if Waldo Cortes-Acosta will be able to pick apart Pavlovich en route to becoming the next heavyweight contender. And while there aren't any other fights that I want to get into from a storyline perspective, I will just briefly mention some fights that you should keep your eyes on Saturday morning, and that includes Suma Derji versus Kevin Borjas in the flyweight division, Lonier Kavanaugh looking to improve to 10-0 against the veteran Charles Johnson, and Michel Pereira looking to bounce back from his 2-fight skid against Kyle Dawkins, who will be re-debuting back in the promotion after a brief stint on the regional scene where he would pick up 4 consecutive victories after being released from the promotion. So that is it for the UFC Shanghai preview, and I want to get all of your thoughts, your predictions, and your bets down in the comments below, specifically for those top 3 fights, because that is an incredible 3-fight stretch for any fight night. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, because we are on the road to reaching 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and any and all support is greatly appreciated. Alongside previews of the biggest and best fights and storylines heading into each card, I also recap the most meaningful results in the aftermath of every card, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can also join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and you can follow along in your favorite audio listening platform such as Spotify and Apple, where podcast episodes are released there every Monday and Friday. Have a great weekend, enjoy the fights, and I will see you all in the next video.